Welcome back, America. We have our dear friend, former Speaker Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich, the other day, the President of the United States asserted executive privilege to cover his ass. Not for the presidency, not for the separation of powers issue, really, for the Joe Biden wants to get reelected issue. And he asserts executive privilege because Congress is about to, at least the House, hold Merrick Garland in contempt because he refuses to release the videotape of Joe Biden's interview with former special counsel Hur, which is absolutely, apparently damning. Damning of Joe Biden, damning of his incognition, damning of his handling of classified information, and on and on and on. And so they're exerting executive privilege. This is not the purpose of executive privilege, and I just want to give this to you, too. On 8 separate occasions, when this so-called January 6th Soviet commission that Nancy Pelosi set up were demanding presidential papers, basically of any kind, he waived executive privilege 8 times. So tens of thousands of documents that were supposed to be protected in the office of the presidency were turned over to Nancy Pelosi and Liz Cheney's committee. But here, when they want to know exactly what Joe Biden said, not as president, but said under this investigation, they are asserting executive privilege. What do you make of that?
Look, the guy's a crook and a liar. So he behaves like a crook and a liar. As long as he's president, you have to assume that the Constitution is very limited application. The rule of law has almost no application, and he's going to do whatever he can get away with. I think any effort to try to define either Biden or his appointees within a traditional American system just misunderstands who they are. These are people who have total contempt for the Constitution, total contempt for the rule of law, and believe if they can get away with it, they ought to. And, I think that this is just one more example.
It's an important point. One more example. I think we've moved into the category of tyranny now, don't you? Trying to put your opponent in prison, going into 4 different jurisdictions with Democrat prosecutors, 91 phony allegations, defying the Supreme Court repeatedly on student loans and so forth, refusing to enforce the border, on and on and on, impounding funds to Israel. If this isn't tyranny, what is?
Well, I think this is exactly what the Founding Fathers were worried about. Remember, during the American Revolution, the number 2 demand after no taxation without representation was getting control of the judges, because the British judges were clearly instruments of the king, not instruments of the law. And so there's a very deep feeling among the American revolutionaries that they wanted to establish the rule of law. The whole point of the Constitution is to protect citizens from the government. Because they had such deep fear of tyranny. And I would say that virtually all the Founding Fathers would say that what we're watching right now is a tyranny. Adams was faced with Jefferson as an opponent, even though Jefferson was vice president. Never would have occurred to Adams to try to put Jefferson in jail. His son, John Quincy Adams, faced a 4-year campaign by Andrew Jackson. Would never have occurred to him to try to put Jackson in jail. The sort of things we're seeing right now, not just with Trump, but with people who've been locked up permanently by the January 6th Commission and by the really police state approach to that particular event. The distinction between people who rioted, burned down buildings, all of it involved in Black Lives Matter, which was because apparently on the left morally appropriate, so you burn down an occasional building, destroy an occasional business, but you mean well. You compare that with how ruthlessly they go after, for example, anti-abortion activists. I mean, when you have federal agents fully armed with full armor showing up at 3 or 4 in the morning at the home of an activist who's pro-life, you know there's something sick going on that really comes close to tyranny.
Isn't this why they hate Donald Trump so? Because Donald Trump is really a historic figure, isn't he? That is, Donald Trump refuses to play by their rules. He'll play by the legal rules, he'll play by the Constitution's rules, but he refuses to play by their rules. And so they fear him really more than any other Republican on the scene who wants to get along with the media, who doesn't want to stir up the bureaucracy, who just wants to kind of manage around the edges. But Donald Trump says, no, I'm taking it right to these people.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.